She was already running late, and the elevator in her own building was broken. That was the kind of morning it was. The kind where the universe doesn't announce its intentions. It just quietly rearranges everything while you're looking the other way. Naomi Osibonsu had 17 minutes before her 7:30 call with the board in Montreal, a coffee going cold on the granite counter of her 41st floor condo, and a maintenance request that had apparently been filed, lost, refiled, and ignored for the better part of 3 weeks. She knew this because she had sent the emails herself. She was, after all, a woman who sent emails. Running a national logistics firm with 400 employees across 6 provinces had made her very good at that, at documenting, delegating, following up, at being the kind of person nothing slipped past. Except elevator repair orders, apparently. She took the stairwell. 38 floors is a long way to walk in heels you regret wearing, and by the time Naomi reached the lobby, she was breathing harder than she would have liked, and her jaw was set the way it got when she was deciding whether or not to fire someone. She pushed through the stairwell door at the ground floor and nearly walked directly into a ladder. The man on the ladder didn't fall. That was the first thing she noticed, that he had very good reflexes for someone she had nearly toppled from a height of 6 feet. He caught the conduit he'd been threading through the ceiling panel with one hand, steadied himself with the other, and looked down at her with an expression that was not angry. That was the second thing she noticed. Most people, startled like that, go either apologetic or defensive. This man just looked at her the way you look at unexpected weather, acknowledging it, adjusting, moving on. "Elevator panel," he said. "I can have it running by noon. I needed it running at 7:15, Naomi said. "I know." He climbed down, folded a drop cloth over the edge of the toolbox. "I got the call at 6:45. I'm Eli." He held out a hand. She shook it before she'd decided to. His name, she would learn later, was Elijah Tran Okafor. He went by Eli everywhere except on the building management work orders, where someone had typed out the whole thing in capital letters like a formal accusation. He was 39. He owned a small electrical contracting company, 3 vans, 7 employees, more work than he could always manage, which he handled by working longer hours than any of his guys and pretending that was sustainable. He had been doing this for 11 years, since the company had been just him and a second-hand truck and a daughter who was then 4 years old and didn't yet understand why Daddy sometimes came home smelling like burnt wire insulation and still found energy to read her 2 chapters before bed. Naomi didn't know any of this in the lobby at 7:17 on a Tuesday. She knew that he had calm eyes and a drop cloth folded with the precision of someone who cared about small things, and that she was about to miss her board call. "Noon," she said again. "Not a question. Noon," he confirmed. She left. She didn't think about him for 11 days. Then the elevator broke again. This time it was a different problem. A relay, he explained. When she came down to find him in the same lobby at a different hour, late afternoon this time, the winter light going amber through the front windows. She'd been heading to the gym. She was not, if she was being honest with herself, particularly committed to the gym on this particular evening. She'd been putting on her coat more out of habit than intention. "You again," she said. "Me again," Eli agreed. There was a child sitting on the bottom step of the lobby stairs, a girl of about 9 or 10, doing homework on a tablet with the focused displeasure of someone deeply opposed to long division. She had her father's calm, and none of his patience for small inconveniences. Every 30 seconds she sighed. "My after-school pickup fell through," Eli said, not apologizing, just explaining. "She's fine. She's done this before." "I'm always fine," the girl said, without looking up. "I'm also terrible at fractions." "You're not terrible at fractions," Eli said. "I got 4 out of 12 on the last quiz. That's a third." The girl looked up. "That's not helpful, Dad." Naomi found herself standing still for longer than was strictly necessary. The girl's name was Kezia. She was 9.5. She was particular about the half, and she had her father's eyes and an opinion about everything and a habit of asking adults questions they were not prepared for. Naomi would discover this last part in approximately 90 seconds. "Do you live here?" Kezia asked, looking up at Naomi with direct assessing attention. "I do. Do you like it?" Naomi considered the elevator. "Usually. My dad says buildings are like people. What's wrong with them is usually something small that got ignored." She looked at her tablet again. "I think that's also about people, but he says it's just about buildings." Ellie, to his credit, did not look embarrassed. He looked at his daughter with the particular expression of a parent who has long since made peace with being seen clearly by someone very small. "She's not wrong," he said. Naomi thought about the 17 emails she had sent in the last month that she had not yet received responses to. She thought about her condo, which was large and well-designed and very quiet at night. She thought about the way she'd put on her gym clothes that evening more as an act of going somewhere than as an act of health. No, she said, she's probably not. She didn't go to the gym. She went back upstairs and stood in her kitchen for a while. She told herself it was nothing. She was 44 years old. She ran a company. She had been on the cover of a business magazine 18 months ago, which she found more embarrassing than flattering, because the photo had involved a pose she would never willingly adopt in real life. She did not have time or inclination for whatever this was. This small, inconvenient awareness of a man in a lobby with a daughter who did fractions wrong and sighed about it. She kept herself busy. This had always been her primary coping mechanism, and she was extremely good at it. There were budgets and contracts and a Q4 review and a partnership proposal that needed restructuring and a team in Calgary that was having communication issues and 3 cities' worth of logistical problems that could absorb any amount of attention she chose to throw at them. She was very busy. She also started taking the stairs down more often than was strictly necessary for a woman who lived on the 41st floor. It took her another week to admit, privately and only to herself in the shower one morning, that she was doing this on purpose. That she was hoping, specifically, to run into a man who fixed things and had a daughter who asked hard questions and who looked at unexpected situations the way you look at weather, neither thrilled nor ruined by them, just present. She had been a long time without someone who was simply present. She had been married once, briefly, in her early 30s, to a man who was exciting in the way that exhausting things are exciting when you're too young to recognize the difference. That had ended cleanly enough, no children, no cruelty, just a mutual recognition that they had confused intensity for intimacy, and neither of them had wanted to keep paying the cost of the mistake. She had been fine. She had built a company. She had been fine. She had also been, for quite some time now, in the business of convincing herself that fine was enough. She saw Eli next on a Saturday morning, unexpectedly, at the farmer's market on Dundas West. She was there for coffee and the sourdough she got every second week from a woman named Cora who had a waiting list and would not put Naomi on it no matter how much she implied she was important. Naomi respected this about Cora. She went to the market and waited like everybody else. Eli was there with Kezia, who was eating a maple butter tart with the seriousness of a professional critic and explaining her findings to her father in real time. The crust ratio is off, Kezia was saying. There's too much filling. That's the part most people like, Eli said. Most people are wrong about butter tarts. Naomi almost kept walking. She was good at that, at making the choice to keep walking, to stay in the lane she'd built, to not introduce complications into a life that ran smoothly precisely because she managed it carefully. She didn't keep walking. Your daughter has opinions, she said. Eli turned. He didn't look surprised. He looked again like a man who was comfortable with things arriving unexpectedly. She really does, he said. She's been workshopping this butter tart review since we left the house. It's not a review, Kezia said. It's a critique. There's a difference. What's the difference? Naomi asked. Kezia considered this seriously. A review is what you think. A critique is why you think it. Naomi looked at Eli. Eli shrugged. She reads a lot. They walked the market together. Not on purpose, exactly. It just kept happening that they were moving in the same direction, past the same vendors, pausing at the same things. Kezia found the apple cider donuts and stopped all conversation for approximately 4 minutes. Eli bought a bunch of chard he probably would not use. Naomi got her sourdough at last and caught Cora looking between her and Eli with an expression Naomi did not acknowledge. At the edge of the market, where the vendors thinned out and the street went back to being just a street, they stopped. I don't usually run into people from buildings I've worked in, Eli said. Toronto's smaller than it looks, Naomi said. I know. I've lived here my whole life. She knew she should say goodbye. She was good at goodbyes. Clean, warm, appropriate. She had given hundreds of them. Would you want to? She started and then stopped because she was not typically a woman who started sentences she hadn't planned. Eli waited. He was patient. She'd noticed that about him. Coffee, she said. There's a place on the next block, not the farmer's market stuff, actual coffee. He looked at Kezia. Kezia was examining the paper bag containing her cider donut with the expression of someone deciding whether to eat it now or save it. She looked up, caught whatever look was on her father's face, and said without any preamble, "She seems nice, Dad. We should go." Ellie looked back at Naomi. "We should go," he said. There is a particular moment in the beginning of something real. Not a moment you recognize while you're in it, usually only when you look back, where the ordinary becomes weight-bearing. where the specific gravity of another person's presence starts to matter to the structure of your days, and you don't notice it happening because nothing dramatic occurs. Nobody announces it. The shift is so quiet that the only sign is a small, persistent warmth behind the breastbone that you keep almost forgetting and then noticing again. Naomi noticed it over coffee on a Saturday when Eli told her about the company he'd built from nothing after a layoff and a bad year and a leaking apartment and a 4-year-old who needed stability he didn't yet have. He told it without complaint, as a story that had simply happened. The way you describe weather from 6 years ago. Accurately, without drama, because it's over. He told her about the Tuesday nights he took Keziah to the library because she could take out 12 books on a single card and it cost nothing and was, in her words, better than television. She said that at 5, Eli said. I don't know where she got it. She got it from you, Naomi said. He looked at her steadily for a moment. Maybe. Keziah was at the end of the table, entirely inside a chapter book she'd apparently been carrying in her coat pocket, unconcerned with the adults. The winter light came through the window. The coffee was good. Naomi had not been this unguarded in a conversation in longer than she could immediately calculate, and that fact sat with her, quiet and a little startling, like arriving home to find all the lights already on. She told her assistant, Frederica, nothing. She told her friend Janet in Vancouver one sentence. There's someone I've had coffee with twice who I keep thinking about. Janet said, who? Naomi said, the electrician who fixed my elevator. Janet was quiet for 3 seconds, then, okay, keep going. She told her the Keziah and the butter tart story. Janet laughed for a long time. Then she said, with the directness of a 22-year friendship, Naomi, when's the last time you talked to someone and forgot to keep track of how you were coming across? Naomi didn't answer immediately. That's your answer, Janet said. There was a dinner. Naomi organized it the way she organized most things. Methodically, with attention to detail, though she spent 3 times as long on it as anything should have taken and rearranged her kitchen counter 4 times. She made jollof rice because it was the thing she had grown up eating on special occasions. The recipe her mother had taught her in a kitchen in Brampton when Naomi was 11 and impatient, and didn't yet understand that food cooked slowly, and from memory was its own kind of love language. She almost changed the menu twice, she didn't. Eli and Keziah came on a Thursday. Keziah walked into the condo and made a slow circle in the living room, taking in the ceiling height and the bookshelves and the view of the city going dark in the early evening, and then she said, very seriously, you have a lot of space. I do, Naomi agreed. Is it lonely? It's okay, Naomi said. And then, because it was true, yes, sometimes. Keziah nodded as though this confirmed something she'd suspected. We have too little space, she said. It's never lonely, though. She thought about it. Maybe there's something in the middle. There was a beat of silence. Eli looked at his daughter with an expression Naomi couldn't fully read. Part exhaustion, part awe, part the very specific helpless love of a parent who has made peace with being regularly undone by someone who only comes up to his shoulder. They ate. Keziah had 2 servings of the jollof rice and declared it the best thing she'd eaten since the cider donut. The comparison made Eli close his eyes briefly, and Naomi laughed, really laughed, the unguarded kind, and dinner continued. After Keziah fell asleep on the couch under a blanket Naomi had produced from a closet without thinking about it, Eli and Naomi sat at the kitchen table with tea. Neither of them was particularly drinking and talked for 2 hours. He told her about his late wife. Her name had been Suyeon. She had been a nurse. She had died when Keziah was 2, a sudden illness, the kind that comes without logic or warning and rearranges everything. He said it without breaking. But carefully, the way you carry something fragile, not because you're afraid to drop it, but because it deserves to be carried with attention. I kept her library card, he said. Suyeon's. I know that doesn't make sense. It makes complete sense, Naomi said. He looked at her. Things that mattered, she said, should be kept. They were quiet for a moment. I haven't talked about her with someone new in a while, Eli said. I'm glad you did, Naomi said. He picked up his tea. You're different than I expected. What did you expect? He considered this honestly. More of the building, he said. She understood him perfectly. She had been more of the building for years, efficient, smooth-running, self-contained. She had kept herself that way on purpose. It was also, she was slowly and somewhat reluctantly coming to understand not the same thing as living. I'm working on that, she said. She almost broke it. This is the part that doesn't get told often enough. The moment where someone who has been independent and self-sufficient for long enough that it's become identity, not just habit, starts to feel the weight of caring about someone and decides very quietly to panic. Naomi was good at disguising her panics. They looked from the outside like busyness. She got very busy in February. There was a real issue with the Calgary team, and she attended to it with more personal involvement than was strictly necessary. She took a trip to Vancouver to see Janet, which was good, but also, if she was honest, timed in a way that put distance between herself and something she didn't know yet how to hold. She didn't call Eli for 2 weeks. He didn't push. He sent one text, a photo of Kazia's library receipt, 14 books in a single visit with a caption that said, "New record," that was all. She stared at that text for a long time. She called Janet. "I'm about to do the thing," she said. "What thing?" Janet said, though her voice suggested she already knew. "The thing where I decide it's too complicated and I'm too busy and he deserves someone without this much armor and I back away cleanly and everybody's fine." "Everybody's fine," Janet repeated. "Yes. Are you, though? Fine?" Naomi didn't answer. "Naomi, how often do you think about him?" "That's not the point. That's exactly the point." She was quiet. "The armor thing," Janet said more gently. "I've known you for 22 years. I was there when you built it. I understand why you built it. But I want to ask you something. Keziah asked you if your apartment was lonely, and you said yes. When's the last time you told the truth that fast to someone you just met?" The line hummed. "I'm terrified," Naomi said. It came out quieter than she expected. "I know," Janet said. "That's actually a good sign." She came back from Vancouver on a Sunday. She texted Eli from the airport, "14 books seems excessive, but I respect the commitment." He replied within 4 minutes. She finished 3 on the flight home from the library. "I'm starting to think this is a problem." "It's not a problem," Naomi typed. "It's her thing. You should let her have her thing." A pause. "Then, you're probably right, then. I'm glad you're back." She held her phone in the airport and didn't try to make herself feel less than what she felt. Spring came to Toronto the way it always does. Badly at first, fits and starts. March pretending to be winter and April making apologies, and then suddenly 1 week in May where the city exhales all at once. And everyone walks outside and looks at each other like they'd forgotten this was possible. Eli was doing a job near High Park. Keziah was on a school trip. Naomi had taken a rare half-day. Her assistant Frederica had started scheduling them with a firmness that bordered on mutiny, and she walked no destination, coffee in hand, until she ended up near where he was working. She almost kept walking. She had been almost keeping walking for 4 months now. She was tired of it. She stopped. He was outside the building on his lunch break, eating a sandwich, reading something on his phone. He looked up when she stopped, and his face did the thing it did. That quiet settling, not surprise, just recognition. Like she was expected, like he'd been patient and it had worked. "Hi," she said. "Hi," he said. She sat down on the step beside him without being invited, because she was tired of waiting for invitations to do things she wanted to do. "I've been thinking," she said, about whether I'm going to keep being sensible about this, or whether I'm going to actually do something about it." He was quiet, giving her the space to continue. "I'm 44, she said. "I have a company and a very large, sometimes lonely apartment and an elevator that keeps breaking. And I have spent the last 4 months thinking about you in the specific way that I think about things I want but am afraid of, which is to say, constantly and without resolution." The street went on around them. A streetcar passed. Someone's dog strained at a leash to smell something important. "I'm not easy to be with. I go quiet when I'm scared. I didn't tell you I was scared for 2 weeks and I went to Vancouver instead of just saying it." She paused. "I'm saying it now." Ellie put his sandwich down. "Naomi," he said, and there was something in the way he said her name plainly, with full attention, that she felt in the center of her chest like a tuning fork. "I know you're not easy. I'm not particularly easy either. I have a 10-year-old who critiques pastry, and I keep my late-was library in my wallet, and I work 6 days a week because I don't fully trust that the good thing will stay if I stop watching it." She looked at him. "I've been waiting," he said, "for you to stop almost keeping walking." She blinked. "You notice that. I notice most things." A pause. "Also, Keziah told me you were scared. She said you had the look. The look. She's very perceptive. It's occasionally inconvenient." Naomi laughed, the same unguarded laugh as at the dinner table, the one she couldn't calculate. "What did you say to her?" "I told her to mind her business." He smiled, and it was a full smile, quiet and certain. "She said that was fair, but she was right anyway." "She was right anyway," Naomi agreed. He took her hand. "Not dramatically, just the way you take something you've been meaning to pick up for a while and are finally sensibly." "So," he said. "So," she said. "The thing about building a life from scratch, whether it's a company or a family or a version of yourself you can actually live inside, is that it doesn't announce itself as beginning. It starts in small moments that seem ordinary at the time. A lobby, a farmer's market, a Thursday dinner, and a 10-year-old asleep on your couch with 14 library books worth of opinions about the world. Keziah, for her part, took it with the composure of someone who had seen it coming. She received the news that her father and Naomi were actually, not almost keeping walking, announced over dinner at Eli's apartment. Jollof rice again by request, with a single nod and the following statement. "I've been thinking about this since the butter tart." "That was 4 months ago," Eli said. "I know." She picked up her fork. "I have a lot of thoughts. I need time to organize them." Naomi looked at Eli. Eli looked at the ceiling. "She's not wrong," Naomi said. "She's never wrong," Eli said, with the resigned certainty of a man who had made peace with this a long time ago. Later, when Eli was in the kitchen and Keziah and Naomi were sitting in the small living room with its crowded bookshelves, and the particular warmth of an apartment where someone had lived fully and without apology, Keziah looked at her with those clear, careful eyes and said, "Do you know how to stay?" It was not a mean question. It was the question of a child who had learned, young, that people left in different ways, some loudly, some quietly, some by becoming too busy, some by becoming too scared, and who wanted to know before she let herself count on something, whether it was the kind of thing you could count on. Naomi thought about the 2 weeks in February. She thought about the airport and the text. She thought about the step outside the building in May and the hand she'd let herself take. "I'm learning," she said. "I wasn't very good at it before, but I'm learning." Keziah considered this with the seriousness of someone who understood that honest was more trustworthy than certain. "Okay," she said. And then, because she was Keziah, "The learning part counts. My dad says that's actually the important part." "Your dad's pretty wise," Naomi said. "He is." She opened her book. "He just doesn't always know it." The elevator in Naomi's building got a full replacement in June. New mechanisms, new panel, properly done. She took the stairs anyway sometimes on the way down. Old habit, or maybe something else. The memory of a lobby and a drop cloth folded with precision and a pair of calm eyes that had looked at the unexpected with something other than annoyance. She mentioned this to Eli on a Saturday, standing in her kitchen while he made eggs and Keziah read at the table. He didn't say anything for a moment, just flipped the egg, turned down the heat. "The stairs were the beginning," he said. "They were," she agreed. Keziah, without looking up from her book. "I knew it was the lobby." They looked at each other. "She reads too much," Eli said. "There is no such thing as too much reading," Keziah said serenely, turning a page. The city moved outside the window. Somewhere below, 41 floors down, the elevator ran on time. The eggs were done. The light came in the way it does in Toronto in summer, sideways in gold, making ordinary things look briefly impossibly worth keeping. Naomi thought about what Keziah had asked her. "Do you know how to stay?" She was learning. That was the part that counted. The three of them sat down to breakfast.